Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Sensual Goat, OK Computer, Eli, Neil, Original D-Rose, Duncan, I think we've got Brian, and one other I can't see in that list. So, also a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Greetings.
Who did I miss from G+?
Hello.
Got so many people in G+. I missed somebody. One deck.
It was one deck.
Sorry, one deck. You couldn't see your name, and I didn't think to scroll down in the other list, so my bad. Anyway, it's good to be here. More people than ever for some reason. Is something going on? Is there some important event for there to be this many people in the G+ panel? Clearly not. Everyone's just keen to be here. Well, I'm privileged. Thank you for being here, all of you lot. And I can't even know
Nowhere else we'd rather be.
Glad to be here.
Oh, that's good to know. Well, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to do a bit of housekeeping? Do you want to get straight into this video that had been shared by Sensual Goat? The housekeeping?
You're not going to do one housekeeping question?
I'm veering away from them more and more as time goes by. Because the more I say them, the more I feel I'm inviting the position that contradicts, is that the right word, our current 2024 position. If I'm going to suggest that the people who are listening to this move forward on the front foot, if they're engaging in this discussion, or if they're engaging with us in the discussion for the first time, understand that the Earth is measured flat. Now, if that's our standpoint currently, to start out by asking, for example, for any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth, does that not contradict, yeah, that is the right word, our current 2024 standpoint from your point of view, Neil? How do you feel about it?
Yes,
or anybody?
Yes, it does. So then what you need to do is you need to formally make an announcement that the housekeeping questions have kept house. And this is where we are now.
Okay. Yeah. That's a very good idea. That said, I'm literally going through the fourth of probably 6 drafts of a book that's going to be, or was originally labelled housekeeping. So, given that that's the case,
you're calling for the end of an era, Neil. Careful.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to make such a bold statement, Sensual Goat, but
Yeah,
kinda.
but it is.
Yeah,
It's not the end of this housekeeping questions.
I don't say it's the end. I didn't say that. I just, if anything, they'll continue with a caveat that is to say, moving forward on the front foot, we would suggest that you understand, appreciate, and know Earth is measured flat. However, for any globe believers, it's even hard to say globe believers because we know that that's the truest sense of the word. They have a belief that we are acutely aware of, and we're inviting they present evidence for what we know damn well is a belief. We also know that their belief is rooted in the measurements of a flat Earth. So it kind of almost seems, I don't know if insincere is the right word, but certainly antagonistic when we invite our opponents to present their known beliefs as though they are evidence at all.
But weren't they always antagonistic?
Well, no, they were originally designed to summarise the points as we have overcome them on the debate show. So with that in mind, you reiterate them so that you don't have the rinse and repeat cycle. I mean, in a way, they were detrimental because it stopped the ball believers coming, because we're constantly reiterating all of their failings in their arguments to date. Well, that leaves them with very little wiggle room. It keeps house. Now, by not doing so, you would have had, over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, for the sake of argument, people coming in that just wanted to reassert that we have a physical geometric sphere edge, or that we have Coriolis deflection, therefore Earth is turning, or that we have a distance to the sun measurement, etc., etc., etc. So to prevent that from occurring, we reiterate the outcome of the claim to be proof from the globe side within the question, or within an obvious answer to the question. So I don't think it's necessarily, in any way, necessarily going to be ditched, but it's just one of those things that it does kind of counter our current standpoint. It doesn't counter any of our arguments, and there's nothing wrong with any of the housekeeping questions. But if you were to arrive here like you were discussing in the pre-show, Neil, you didn't have this and you didn't have that when you were first approaching the flat Earth subject. We think, well, okay, well, what would I want if I got here? Well, I know what I wanted when I got here, and I didn't get it. But I can provide it by pointing out how Earth is measured and reiterating, for those who want to enter into an advanced debate with someone else, how the globe comes from those flat Earth measurements.
It's like the any evidence of an elevation angle being obtained from a curved baseline. That, to me, is like asking a question like, is there any evidence of a 5-sided triangle?
Yeah.
You know, same. It is, though, isn't it? Because it's never going to happen.
Same with the gas pressure without a container argument. When you ask, is there any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container? Well, no. Why would you ask? Well, because there's a sky vacuum claim. But that's the only reason for us to be asking. Again, with my general stance in debate with anybody is, if I haven't made a claim about this, I don't give a crap to defend it.
Sounds a little like entrapment.
The atmospheric
Hold on,
pressure.
George, then D Rose. Go ahead, George.
For the atmospheric pressure, you're gonna need. So they claim 14.7 psi at sea level. So for the atmospheric pressure, they're gonna need a flat plane.
To describe the gradiated pressure through altitude, yes. It's described with respect to a flat plane at sea level, yes. What were you going to say, D Rose?
No, I was just going to say, all the housekeeping questions are pretty much, like you said, the insincerity and the antagonistic method. It's sort of like, entrapment. It's like luring in the prey with a nice juicy piece of bait, knowing that they're going to react, so that we could just expose all of their nonsensical rhetoric and their lying and everything. So it's an opportunity for conversation, but also it's like an act of entrapment. But I would say productive and constructive entrapment, because we need to let the audience hear the responses and how we rip the shreds consistently with factual, refuted proof against their belief. So that needs to happen more, but nobody's coming in because I guess they've given up, or they just don't have a new answer to give, or they feel scared for whatever reason. But when you do your premieres, they're just chopping it up on the chat thread, running their mouths. I wish I could remember the name of one guy that was on here on the chat thread the other day. He was just going in, and me and Divergent kept on asking him, "Why don't you just come on in?" Divergent sent him the link. He was the one that was betting you. He was the one that's betting you money, Nathan. He said, "I bet you this, I bet you that. You're scared. You're a coward." You remember who I'm talking about?
No.
It was last week sometime.
Nathan don't remember yesterday, D.
I remember releasing a video from the guy that was very polite for several hours after Ballbusters. Was anyone around while that guy was here chatting to us? Polite baller. Right up until the point he called me dumb. Yeah.
His name was Steve Windorf. That's who it was.
Well, he was very conciliatory.
That was Steve?
No, I don't know who Steve was, but Steve was on the chat going in going in hard and just trying to antagonize Nathan. I'll bet you money. Steve with a V and Windorf, Windorf. Yep,
Yeah, I
that's who
see
it
him in
was.
chat. Nathan, the funny thing about that the other night when that guy came in, he was being polite and then he wasn't anymore. We were eating dinner and I was saying how the show was more family friendly so I can have it on. And then you just started ripping them apart, swearing up and down. I went, well, sometimes we do go back a little bit.
What had actually happened? Just to be clear, so this guy's starting to. You can tell when people are starting to twitch, let's say, because they start to swear. There's a reason I say in the intro, please don't swear. Well, in this case, the guy's swearing. Now he's not doing it in a vitriolic way directed at me, but he's swearing. Yeah. So they slip out here and there, and it's for his frustration. So you kind of forgive it. You don't call him on it, or I didn't call him on it, and neither did anybody else, because you can understand it's coming out in frustration. It's not directed at anybody in vitriol, right? But at the point that frustration, him twitching, as I put it, turns into you don't understand, after he's clearly acknowledged and understood how we've measured Earth flat, he's given the rendition back to me, so I absolutely know he understands it. But then he's stuck in cognitive dissonance, and his out of that cognitive dissonance in his mind is to call me dumb and tell me I don't understand, after, what, couple of hours minimum of being very civil with the guy. Taking him by the hand, not condescending to him, not demeaning him or getting angry with him when he presents obviously flawed globe evidence. You know, we courteously, and Huey took a long time with him over gravity, a good solid hour of him going through Einstein's papers, with only subtle hints that he's on a fool's errand looking for a chocolate teapot or stripy paint, or glass hammer. But other than that, we're not overtly ridiculing the guy. So at the point that he decides that he's going to condemn me as being dumb, because he can't quite fathom his cognitive dissonance when we're measuring Earth flat in his own words and his own examples that he's comprehended and given us back, that's when I lose my temper with him. Now, it was very, very temporary, like, I don't know, 60 seconds of me basically shouting and swearing at him and putting him in his place, and giving him a rendition of all the stupid things he had said over the last couple of hours, which, as I say, we had pulled back or held back on, ridiculing him for when he said something stupid. For example, an independent variable is me driving away from something. You're like, okay, no. But if you're going to assert such nonsense, in the moment we'll say, well, actually no, for these reasons, rather than that's really stupid. But when your cog dis kicks in and your revenge for your own cog dis is to call the person who's helping you stupid and dumb and you don't understand, it's like, well, you're going to get both barrels. You know, you don't know me, I don't know you or care for you, especially when your, you know, polite nature has turned into ad hominems. Like, okay, well, I can just do what you guys have done. I've learned from you how to ridicule over 10 years. I was generally quite a polite guy. Go back to the Flat Earth debate, pre-Flat Earth debate, Flat Earth UK interview show. Nothing but conciliatory and polite to everybody I encountered. But over the course of 10 years, you learn how to be ridiculed by your opponent. And if you need to turn the wick up to 11, so your opponent's shell-shocked in the moment, because he's like, oh, you're just dumb, you just don't understand. No, you're in pain, and you've been very stupid here today. And I'll absolutely make you aware of how stupid you are with set examples, where you failed to example how I've been dumb according to you. That's what he actually got. But anyway, all of those disclaimers aside, that's in the members-only video that was recorded after Ballbusters at about 3 in the morning. Anyway, so that another reason to be snippy with him was that, you know, Huey had invited me in to discuss why Earth was measured flat at about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning after Ballbusters. And I'm like, oh, literally about to toddle off. And then we spend another prolonged period with this guy who I don't know and don't care about. But because he was reasonably civil, you like spend that time. Anyway, his trimmed out clip has been labelled as the best flat earth proof ever, because it was the most concise rendition of a back and forth between me and technically an opponent about Earth being measured flat, and a reasonably honest recognition of what is being done, how it must be done, and how Earth is flat to do it, from the opponent. So, with that in mind, I thought, well, as we're a debate-orientated show, and this is basically a flat earther telling a globe earther how their globe comes from those measurements, and them accepting and explaining back how they appreciate latitude, for example, is a, in my opinion, excellent rendition for a public to understand how you, the globe side, can accept and understand the Earth being measured flat for your globe to exist, because it's absolutely required. Hence, this guy could only concede at the points that describe measurements off a flat plane, because that is what is required to create a globe. And so, as a result, it was only about an 8-minute video. But I have released that to the public, formerly members only. Go and check it out. It's called The Best Flat Earth Proof Ever.
And I, most of us here, including myself, audibly witnessed it when it was happening. And I also shared the link of that to that particular channel of that blonde lady who said, "Why you don't argue with a flat earther," who I was mentioning earlier, that I wondered if y'all covered or going to cover, because I thought it was so great that right there, nipped it in the bud, right there, of all of her shenanigans she was trying to throw in her video about being a this and that and believing in this and that and asking all these questions. I just said, I just shared that link right there just for all the people that was in her thread asking these stupid 2015 questions about sunrise and all this dumb stuff. But also, that was warranted. That was indubitably warranted how you handled him, because you killed him with kindness, as they say, by giving factual, evidentiary proof from his own words, and you reiterated it in the terminology that was more technical with what he was saying, and exposed his stupidity without calling him stupid. And like you said, he reacted like they normally do. They get frustrated like anybody does when they feel the pressure getting hotter and hotter and hotter. They just attack. And it was warranted. It was great.
Did you say it was 3:00 in the morning your time, Nathan?
Yes.
Now, who does that?
What I do when QE lands me in the limelight without me necessarily wanting to be. I explained this yesterday. I'd done it to him. So I dropped Simon Dan's video on him and gone, "Can you react to this?" or "What do you think of this?" They started reacting. I'm like, "This is gold," and just hit the record button, because everything's obviously already set up. And then I published it. And they're like, "You recorded this." I'm like, "I'm always recording, or I should be considered to always be recording." He's like, "Oh, okay, fine." And then the same day, that's what happened at 3 a.m. or whatever. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, maybe this is revenge."
There was a great moment in the video, Nathan, where you're trying to give him the definition of an elevation angle. And he's saying, no, I need the definition of ground plane. And I'm thinking to myself, buddy, what do you think it means?
Definition of what?
He's asking, what do we mean by the ground? Because it's an imaginary plane. I'm like, "No, mate, we're navigating the ground. It's the ground." He's like, "Oh, right, the ground plane." And then Sasha's like, "Yeah, okay, ground plane." I'm like, "Yeah, well, let's just define what we're actually measuring, elevation angle." He's like, no, I want a definition of ground plane. I'm like, "Okay, well, the measurement we're making is elevation. That's what I'm going to be reading out, so I'll just read it out for you."
Yeah, but just the word elevation. What do they think they're measuring it from?
Yeah, I like that word.
Midair?
Yeah, elevation. What does that mean to you? Does like random 0 point in space and how high you are above that random plane that's imaginary? No, it's elevation, you dumbo.
Was the ground plane, or was that whatever that is that supposed to be the GP? Is that is that like the glow point, like the other baller called it one time?
No, he didn't qualify it, but I did. I'm like, well, no, this is the ground we're dealing with, and we're dealing with ground positions at the end of the straight line that you're measuring with this angle. It's like, right, so we're measuring a flat plane to get an angle to a star because we need a flat plane. I'm like, yeah, Earth's measured flat. He's like, yeah, okay, I understand. All words to that effect.
Doesn't matter what they do. I mean, I had a conversation with someone, a similar conversation, and whatever they're saying or how the conversation's going, both parties are always talking about horizontal plane, level, elevation angles, altitude above sea level. No time ever does curvature come into it, or curvature measurement on both sides, because That's not happening.
Yeah, both sides are measuring Earth flat. Therefore, the rock and a hard place analogy stands. When a glober comes here and gives their evidence on the front foot, we're reacting to it. And we point out that in order to make one of their assertions, they will need to measure a flat plane to get an angle to a star for the sake of argument. Now, at that point, they've got two choices. Number one, deny that that is a measurement with respect to the ground, in which case their globe claim, which is dependent on that flat Earth measurement, instantly fails because it's the genesis of their globe claim. In order to imagine you're on a globe, you've got to measure Earth flat. So if you deny it, you haven't got a globe claim to make. You deny the base foundation of your globe claim. So that's the end of your argument. Alternatively, accept angle measurements to stars, in which case you accept you're measuring Earth flat. When you then say, well, let's take this elevation angle to Polaris and move forth with our globe inference from there forward, we stop them and go, you've just measured Earth flat. That's the end of the argument. And then they can go back to the hard place and say, well, if we don't use that, reply, well, you haven't got a claim to make, your globe is based on it. Oh, well, I will accept it. Well, then you're accepting Earth's measured flat. And so it goes on.
It's not hard.
Welcome to flat Earth.
Yeah.
In an analogy for simpletons, flour is flat Earth. The first cake that was baked, the concept was, wow, I'd like to have a cake. 2-layer, 1-layer, 3-layer. How do I make a cake? What is one of the main ingredients that I must use to make a cake? Damn, flour. Can't make a cake without flour. Not a real cake. So flour is flat Earth. Flour is a prerequisite ingredient to make a cake. And your cake is your imaginary globe.
Yeah, we got it.
D-Rose, you just topped my when I ask people for time, telling them that they're going to need a flat Earth. I mean, that flower situation beats that outright.
Okay,
The
cool. All
hippies.
right.
I thought he was being a hippie with the flower.
But you know what? You gotta understand too, the cognitive dissonance is kind of like I guess it's always revised because you gotta understand though, I kind of have empathy a little bit as if I was a normie or if I was a person that was really not able to release and get rid of the belief. You got people like, I don't want to bring this up, but Bev, who in a pedantic manner denies the flat Earth because he's so stuck on terrestrial navigation and the topographical variance of the plane. So you throw that in there and you think about the people who are normies that been trained and programmed, and you think the ones who are liars, you mix that all up in one jambalaya. You can understand why the cognitive dissonance is so
No.
strong.
I can't, because the information that's coming out in 2024 for the past few years should annihilate any cog diss because you're talking about measurements.
Just a slight correction. You said Bev denies the flat Earth. He knows that it's not flat based on how flat it is. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's correct.
He bases the topology changes on a zero reference point that he must reference in order to describe the deviation from that 0 point. Well, the 0 point is an overall topographical plane that the elevations and depressions of the land will be referenced to. Earth is measured flat to describe how not flat it is. By Bev. Yes, that's correct, Chocolate. Anyway, we've got a video to cover. So this video is called How to Debunk a Conspiracy Theory. And based on the thumbnail, it's heavily leaning into the idea of debunking flat Earth, quote-unquote conspiracy theory, I assume. I've not watched it, but it's been shared by, was it Central Goat? Did you share it, Liam?
Correct. There's also a creaky one there, but okay, we're going with this one.
Yeah, I picked this one. I mean, no prejudice, but this is what we're covering. So maybe we'll cover Creaky tomorrow if it's good. Have you watched this already? I assume you have.
Yeah, enough to know that it's relevant for the show.
Well, it's starting off with a flat Earth model with balls over a pizza pie. So, I don't know if this can't be relevant. It can only be relevant, it seems.
Flat Earth people, the geocentrists, the Bigfoot supporters, they're rejecting operational science and misunderstanding historical science. They split the difference in the wrong place.
How can anybody know if we've landed on the moon?
The moon landing.
We can. We know you haven't. Because, see this area here? Yeah? This is claimed to be a 10 to the minus 17 torr sky vacuum. The black bit. Yeah? That would be an area of volume that gas could fill. Now, intrinsically, the fake actors pretending to be on the moon know this to be the case because they've put containers around their body to keep the gas that they are breathing inside this container. Now, let's pretend for a second that this little eye is the Earth. Now, let's pretend that they're looking back at Earth from the moon surface with its high-pressure gas not dispersing into the 10 to the minus 17 torr black area called space. A sky vacuum. No. You see, based on the narrative of having a sky vacuum to traverse, to land on the moon, to look back at high-pressure gas on Earth, violating a law of nature would violate the second law of thermodynamics. Gas fills space. It's called dispersion. Gas will expand into whatever volume it has available to it. If they were capable of looking back at Earth, then they would be looking back at a rock with no gas pressure on it, because the gas would fill the space. It would have never developed gas pressure. This entire narrative is complete nonsense and a violation of natural law, the second law of thermodynamics. Gas fills space. The sky is not a vacuum. Ergo, you cannot traverse a sky vacuum to land on the moon. It is debunked, as are all claims from a sky vacuum, including but not limited to orbital motion, satellites, trips to Mars, trips to the moon, floating around telescopes, all of those things that are claimed to take place in the sky vacuum. The ISS, all of it, it's all garbage, it's all lies. Every last bit of it. There is no sky vacuum. It stands in direct violation of a law of nature. Gas fills space.
Landing is the mother of all conspiracy theories. That's
Moon landing is the mother of all conspiracy theories if you understand that it cannot possibly be real and therefore there must have been a conspiracy to create that lie, which it is. You can't go through an empty void space that gas isn't filling to land on a moon that we can't travel to through that area. Go ahead.
Wait, so he's trying to debunk the conspiracy theory that people didn't go to the moon? Okay, that's a hell of a statement to say. Well, how can anybody know we went to the moon? That's your argument? That's your argument? So what about the people that believe they went to the moon? They can't know they went to the moon either? That's a hell of a statement coming from that side. It's a little weird.
Right, I should do a proper call to action. Indeedy, chocolate. So I'm going to post another link to this videographer. Please let this videographer know, which is Creation Ministries International, that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Please leave them a like, comment, subscribe if you like the other content that they're producing. You may or may not like what they're covering in this video, but it doesn't mean you won't like them as a videographer. So check them out. As I say, there is a link in the live stream chat now. The main reason we do this when there's people obviously in opposition to our position is so that were they to cover us in response, they would do the same. Put a link to at Nathan Oakley 1980, as I am suggesting you, my audience, go to them and help them in the YouTube algorithm. So please do that now if you are watching live. There's almost 70 people watching. Also, please share this show if you haven't done so already. Smash the share button. But more importantly, go and let Creation Ministries International know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment that basically indicates that we've responded to their video in the hope that they would put a link to our video if they were to do a response to us. Hopefully that's brought enough time for at least some of you from the live audience to toddle along to this particular videographer and drop them a nice comment. Help them in the YouTube algorithmic love that we are so desperately lacking from our YouTube platform overlords. So please do that. Hopefully that has indeed given people enough time, so I'll carry on.
spilled over into a lot of the other conspiracy theories that we see popping up today.
You're what is called a creationist. Isn't creationism sort of a conspiracy?
Creationism as in taking from the Bible what it says to have been the case. Okay? Why would that be a conspiracy? What a stupid question.
Many people believe in Bigfoot. Others think that men didn't land on the moon and...
Right, other men think that we didn't do something. There should be a standardized evidence with the burden on the person who is the positive claimant. Yeah? Some people believe in Bigfoot. That's fine, because that is the standard and the burden of the person who is believing in Bigfoot to prove. Now, the correct way to phrase this would be, some people believe men landed on the moon. Yeah? That's their burden to prove. Now, when somebody attempts to suggest to me that they've traversed a sky vacuum, I just nod or roll my eyes and look at clouds and say, no. You see, the way the gas is in a nice cyclical motion, contained, at pressure, that wouldn't be possible if the sky was a vacuum. Yeah, it's a violation of a law of nature. Gas fills space, we'd have no gas to breathe. In the creation of the world you think you live in a crazy, nonsensical, heliocentric sky vacuum world, the first gas particle on a globe Earth that doesn't really exist. It's come from flat Earth measurements of the stars. But in the la-la land fantasy that this guy thinks he's living in, where you can travel to the moon, the very first gas particle would have left the ground, because that's where gas is created, and expanded into the sky vacuum. Never to return. And so would the second and the third and the fourth, until we had no gas to produce, because there was no cycles being developed. And that would be the end of any notion of ever having gas pressure, because there's nothing for it to press on. Now, in this world, you've got gods. Your gods. They're just men, pathetic men that you worship as gods, that float around in an area that isn't real. They can traverse the high-pressure gas and wave goodbye at the Kármán line. But the gas just violates natural law and hangs around a blue marble in a sky vacuum, defying that natural law of entropy and entropic dispersion, described in the second law of thermodynamics. No, definitely not. But here we are with some people don't believe it. Oh, maybe I should be out there proving a negative then. No, your positive claim stands in violation of the second law of thermodynamics. End of argument.
Even others think that the Earth is flat. Maybe you've got a friend that's always carrying on about the latest...
We don't think it's flat, it's measured flat.
...conspiracy, or perhaps you're wrestling with one. How can any of us know whether a conspiracy is true or false?
Right, you're convoluting two different subjects. Whether or not something is true or false, as opposed to whether or not there are more than one conspirator in the dissemination of information that could be true or false, are two unconnected and unrelated subjects. Now, there's an automatic misapprehension that the word conspiracy is ultimately linked to falsehood. No, you can conspire to do many different things. But in this scenario, we've got this other word that's strapped on, put it all in brackets, conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist. This negative connotation that's been invented by, I believe, the CIA to cast aspersions on anybody that opposes their rhetoric they're poisoning the masses with to control them. So if you stand in opposition to propagandized information, you are labelled a conspiracy theorist. A kook. Okay? Well, I don't consider myself anything of the sort. Now, you could say I'm conspiring with everyone on this panel to tell you how Earth is measured flat. How your globe reification, look it up, came from those flat Earth measurements. That's not conspiracy.
Dr. Robert Carter, you have spent years analyzing conspiracies and have defined 3 tests that can help anyone draw the right conclusions. And I think that they help tremendously.
Conclusions on what? If he studied conspiracies, whether or not there are conspirators, is that the conclusions he's drawing as a conspiracy study? What is it that he draws the conclusions on? Is it because there's a vague, blurry, grey area where these two things are going to get convoluted? I believe so.
You're going to unpack those 3 tests, so why don't you...
Are they scientific tests? What are we talking? Are we talking scientific validation of hypotheses? Those kinds of tests? Are they hypothesis tests? Let's find out.
Start with...
Objectivity is completely out the window right now. They've already assumed that it's a conspiracy theory with the poisoning of the well. It's the very first thing they said, equating it to Bigfoot and all that. They're not going to look at the facts whatsoever.
Right. I'm sure in their mind they're very open-minded for discussing this at all.
with the first, or just tell us what all of them are.
Before we hit the 3 tests, I want to explain something very clearly, though.
Why? Just tell us what your tests are.
A conspiracy, by definition, can only be held by a few people.
Okay, so we're talking about how many people are involved, exactly as I just defined, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what defines conspiracy. So what you're going to do is, out of the gate, actually define it as what it is, in vague, wishy-washy terms, so then you can give your 3 tests that are presumably unrelated and directly connect to things that you've debunked in your mind. I see. Let's see how we get on. See if my prediction comes true. It's not a scientific prediction.
We're applying these tests to these alternate ideas. How many people believe it? If millions of people believe something, that might be a mass delusion.
Okay, yeah, I've cut him off too soon.
But it's not going to be a delusion on basic mathematics.
Like, how many people believe something is just how many people believe something. You don't, delusions based on mathematics needs quantification in terms of what you mean by that statement. See, I would say a delusion based on mathematics is gravity. That is to say, it's a geometry, an invented bent space-time in a 4th dimension that doesn't exist in physical reality, only exists in geometry. That's mathematics. That's delusions based on mathematics that I can qualify if I was to use that sentiment and statement.
So my 3 tests are, does this idea fit logic?
So that whole little preamble could have been summarized by your statement, is it logical? Okay?
Does it have logical inconsistencies?
Yes. Does it have logic, or is it not logical? Okay?
The second one is, what about probability?
What's probability got to do with anything? I mean, this isn't physics, is it? We're straight out of the realms of reality in terms of what is probable. So what, based on the number of people, we're going to look at the statistical probability of something in terms of its truthfulness. Wow, this is garbage.
This is what he's going to do. He's going to use a appeal to consensus fallacy, trying to prove it with mathematics and saying it's illogical that millions of people would be in on the conspiracy.
Right, here we go. See if you're right.
Is it likely to be true, or are we really wishing for miracles?
Look, we don't deal in those terms, and this has been prefaced as being dealing with flat Earth. Well, if you are, then you just need to deal with the measurements of it. That's it. There's nothing more to it. It's not about probability. It's not about looking for miracles. If you're going to suggest that measuring an elevation angle and then using that angle measurement to create a map, that's just factual. That's just as it is.
And the third one is, does it match Christian history?
So if you're looking and assessing for whether or not you've got a conspiracy, one of the criteria that you test for is, does it match Christian history or not? Why? What if you're dealing with a malfunctioning part at a major manufacturer of cars? Oh, well, this conspiracy needs my step 2. Does this manufacturing process that made the faulty part through cheap inefficiency have anything to do with Christian history? Well, no. Maybe they weren't conspiring to put garbage into these cars. What the hell? This is meaningless.
And he opened up saying that Christianity was a conspiracy, so now we're looking at conspiracy history to compare it to this other conspiracy.
Wow.
Has Christianity taught something for the last 2,000 years? And if it hasn't, it's more than likely this new idea is not true, because people have thought basically everything there is to think about these issues that we're going to be discussing.
If it ain't Christianity, it ain't real. That's what he's saying. If it ain't written down in the Bible and if it ain't been taught for the last 2,000 years, well, then it's just not worth paying attention to. By that standard, all modern scientific discoveries are bunk. Unless you've got the cause and effect reasoning and valid systematic hypothesis outcome in the Bible, we don't have computing and quantum mechanics. What are you babbling about? You're just crazy. You're just a nutter.
No, he's right, Nathan, because there is no heliocentric system in the Bible. So he debunked his own claim.
If you want me to apply his crappy standards to his globe faith, then no, you can do that if you choose. All right, almost 80 people watching. Please share the show if you haven't done so already. Smash the share button. It's like 2 clicks to put it onto your favourite social media platform.
Okay, so you said that the first of your tests is logic. And what do you mean by logic? How can that help someone who is struggling with conspiratorial ideas?
Whether or not they've got good logic behind them. I mean, the answer's kind of in the question, but we'll see how this guy gets on.
Our universe should be understandable. It should be testable. The experiments should be repeatable. So when we have two people looking at something, they should come.
Oh, brilliant. So now we're in a scientific genre. Oh, this is not going to end well for you, Beardy.
Up with the same answer. But some of the alternate ways of thinking that have come up specifically over the last 10 or 20 years, they fail when you realize that person one and person two are seeing different things.
Right, what the hell does that have to do with putting anything through the scientific method, which is what you just described?
Or that, there's a claim that they can see, like the classic example we see right now of the internet is for the flat earth theory. When you're standing on the...
Not a theory. So theory is the result of validated systematic experimentation. That's the repeatable aspect. You said repeatable? You'd think you'd know what that meant. It means systematic experimentation in a scientific context. You don't know what you're talking about, Beardy. Yeah?
On the shore of Lake Michigan, on the opposite side of Chicago, you can see Chicago.
Okay, so we can see Chicago. So what's my explanation for this as a flat earther? There isn't one needed. We see Chicago. Okay? So I open my eyes, I look, and I see Chicago. That's what I understand from what he's just explained. That's not science. This has absolutely nothing to do with science. You're in a category error. Observing stuff? Oh, right. Was your misapprehension that because in the scientific method we observe natural phenomena, formulate hypothesis, and then endeavour to perform systematic experimentation? Because that includes the word observe at some stage, that this observation is somehow then science? No, definitely not. But you have obviously attempted, with your beard and your glasses, to attempt some validity credence addition to your garbage by suggesting with the word science that anything you have to say has any scientific validity whatsoever. It doesn't. Yeah? Now you're going to get humiliated by a flat earther because you've entered into the realm of science when you use those words. So we're going to rip you a new one, Beardy. We're going to expose you as a fraud. Yeah, masquerading as someone who understands science and the scientific method and how repeatable it must be. Are you now going to talk about repeatedly opening your eyes and looking at Chicago?
He's about to tell us all about the non-standard the booming hyena. Because that's not actually Chicago, Nathan. He's going to give us mitigation for what we're seeing. Because it's definitely not Chicago when we're seeing Chicago.
So, mitigation for what? We don't have to mitigate for anything. What are we mitigating for? He's not explained anything yet. He said we see Chicago. What needs mitigating for? Am I missing something? Fill me in. I don't know what you're talking about. If I go to my window, right, and I look out and I see way into the distance the next town over, and I go to the guy next to me, there's the next town over. See the little clock? Just could almost make out the time on that clock. And the guy next to me goes, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, you can see really far today. That's cool. Yeah? So what? Is the town that I've just nudged my mate to say, look how far we can see today. You can see all the way to that town. Is that a phenomena?
According to these guys, we're about to be told that what we see here is a mirage.
What are you talking about? We've just described seeing something. Shout out to Unitox Femi says, is it Chicago? Natural phenomena? Question mark. Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled too. Chicago, I mean, that's a concrete noun, right? I see Chicago. Well, it's a name, a place name, but you know what I'm getting at. It's just a thing. Nothing's happening. You're just looking at Chicago. A phenomena is something happening, isn't it?
Well, if you assume you're on a ball, it becomes a phenomenon.
No, just seeing something is not a phenomena. Something occurring, something happening is a phenomena.
Yeah. He's about to tell us what's happening. He's about to tell us that what we're seeing is that actually what we're seeing. Let it play. Go ahead. Listen to it.
Now I'm really confused. He's told us we can see Chicago. I'm willing to accept we can see Chicago in this hypothetical example that he's giving us. Okay, so I'm looking at Chicago. Now you're telling me he's about to tell me we're not seeing Chicago. What are you talking about? If we can see Chicago and I've accepted it, why am I about to be told that I'm not seeing it? Let's find out. Now just play on. I'm very confused.
Far away, it should be over the curve of the Earth. And so people say, oh, see.
Sorry, what? It should be over a curve of the Earth? Why should it be? You're seeing it, you crazy batshit insane bearded old man. You're seeing it, but it shouldn't be there. There's my table. Shouldn't be there. Why not? Earth curve should be in the way. Why? Because I say so. But I'm seeing it. Yeah, well, you shouldn't be. I am seeing it, though. Yeah, well, I say it should be blocked by Earth curve. So what you're telling me is I'm not seeing it because I'm not seeing your Earth curve that you're telling me should be there but isn't. Therefore, we shouldn't be seeing it when we do. Mate, you're nuts. Have you thought of having yourself committed?
Sorry, Dan.
Go ahead.
Just saying, mitigation incoming.
Oh, he just needs committing. He's told me he can see Chicago. Now he's saying, I can't see Chicago and shouldn't see Chicago. Well, that's very stupid. I am seeing Chicago. No, but you shouldn't be seeing Chicago. No, I am seeing it. Well, there should be Earth curve in the way of it. No, I'm just seeing it. No, but you shouldn't be. There should be a hill in the way. There's no frigging hill in the way. What are you babbling about, you nutcase? It's like you're standing on the pier looking out at the ocean at an island in the distance. Oh, what a beautiful day. And this nutcase comes up to you and goes, you shouldn't see that island. It shouldn't be there. What? Whoa, crazy old man. Why not? I'm looking at it. What are you babbling about? Well, there should be a hill in the way. But there isn't. So you shouldn't be seeing it. Bugger off to the nut house, you stupid old man. What are you doing? Don't ruin my day telling me I shouldn't see things I can see. Are you nuts?
Yeah, Globers, that's how you sound.
Yeah, an evil witch comes around the corner saying, you shouldn't see that.
You shouldn't be seeing this. We should be seeing hills. Yeah, go back to the mental house, mate. You're bonkers. What's causing Chicago, says Unutox Femu from the Super Chat. Exactly. What's causing Chicago? It's just a town with a load of buildings in it. I'm looking at it. No, you're not. It's not really there. You should be seeing the hill, I imagine, should be there, but isn't, and I can't see it, and it isn't blocking anything. But because it's not blocking anything, and I say it should be there, Chicago's not there. Hello, police. There's a nutter here at this speech. He's telling me I'm not seeing things I'm seeing. Can you just come and cart him away? Shout out to Shatner's Bassoon. You guys don't understand science. No, we do. This bearded idiot doesn't understand science. Yeah, he thinks that having repeatable observations, opening your eyes and then closing them, and then opening them again, science! I've repeatedly watched something. This guy resembles Faulkner, fraudulent intellect, says D-Rose. I don't know about that. We don't know this guy. We just know what he said thus far.
That the Earth must be flat, or else you shouldn't be able to see Chicago.
You are seeing Chicago! Is he nuts? Earth's flat because, well, if it weren't, you wouldn't be able to see Chicago. We can see it. No, but I just told you we shouldn't see it. And there should be an Earth curve in the way, so we're not really seeing it. It's not really there. We are seeing it. This man is nuts. By the way, that's how you all sound to us now, you bonkers, idiot globe believers, telling us that things we see with our own bleeding eyes shouldn't be there. Oh, likewise, if you're a flat earther listening and you use this term, we see too far. No, we don't. You utter fools. Yeah, like I'm telling this guy, what it shouldn't be there, I'm looking at it. Well, Earth must be flat if we shouldn't not see it when it is there but isn't there because Earth curve should be but isn't in the way. Obviously. Nino, nuthouse alert.
Chicago. But what they fail to realize is that you can only see it in the springtime.
When we're looking at it. So we're looking at it, but we can only see it when we see it, and the rest of the time it's not there. So when you're looking at it, it isn't really there. Okay?
So
I'm
Earth,
looking at
Earth is flat in the spring, I guess.
Earth is just flat in the spring then. Yeah. Seasonal flatness.
Was that a real response?
That's what he's telling us.
You missed it. Cargo's only there in the springtime.
And at what point do you bring the science into this, my friend? So, this non-phenomena concrete noun of an observation you've seen is going to be scienced, even though it can't be put through the scientific method. There is no cause and effect relationship to establish here. There is no systematic experimentation you could perform. There are no tests to perform. And this certainly is not science. This man's just a fraud. Yeah? Creation Ministries, the man's a liar. He's telling you this is science. He mentioned it explicitly. Told you about repeatability. And now he's talking about observing things. He's just a fraud. He's not using science. Scamming you. Lying to you. Making himself sound intellectual.
Not on clear days in the winter, the fall, the spring, but someone in a...
So on not clear days, we don't get to see it. But in the spring, we do, because we shouldn't be able to. Okay, Beardy, we're all clear.
Maybe a high-rise building looking out a window cannot see Chicago, but someone down on the seashore can on the same exact day. Why is there a change in elevation? Why does
Show us that. Right? This hypothetical example where someone really low down with the most limited angle available to them can see Chicago, but someone who's widened their angular view to Chicago can't see it. Do you want to show us that? I mean, it wouldn't make it a phenomena either way. You're just looking at stuff. What's supposed to be happening?
that change the view? Because of the laws of physics.
Right, physics, the study of the physical and natural world, that's natural science. That's the scientific method. You're a fraud. Laws of physics. Now, number one, there are no laws of physics. The study of the physical and natural world involves systematic experimentation based on hypothesis after observing a naturally occurring phenomena that you want to know the cause of. That's physics. That's the scientific method. Anything claimed to be science that sits outside of that methodology has also got a definition, if it's claimed to be science, like you're doing, sir. The moment you claim science and you have not put your claim through the scientific method, precisely as this fraud with a beard is doing, it is defined as pseudoscience, a claim of science that has not been through the scientific method. This man is a fraud. Using the words of science, using the words like physics and laws, you're just looking at stuff. Not only are you just looking at it, you're the barking rat mad lunatic on the beach telling people they can't see things they can see. That's not laws of physics, you batshit insane.
Air is a lens. We know.
Is it? There was me thinking that air was an anisotropic, inhomogeneous mixture of gases, and a lens is a lens, like on your glasses, sir.
Know that when light strikes anything of a different optical refraction,
Sorry, what's a different optical refraction when a refraction itself, into optical terms, would be the transition of light through a boundary layer into a different media? What are these optical refractions you talk of? Bend? No, light doesn't bend.
it's going to bend. That's how.
Sorry, do you fundamentally misunderstand how light behaves? It travels in straight lines. Now, upon traversing a boundary, as per the description of refraction in Snell's law, it will change its direction. That's not bending. That's changing direction. Now, in a change in orientation to light upon refraction through a different medium, that's nothing to do with how air behaves. It certainly isn't a lens. To describe refraction, you'll need Snell's law. And that law involves traversing a different medium through a boundary. Like looking at a pencil through a glass of water. The light has to traverse a boundary. It's got two separate mediums. That's why you have the light change its straight path at the point, at the boundary layer. You're describing air's just a lens. Why?
It sounds like he's single-handedly trying to destroy his own geometric claim, which is probably why he thinks that we're seeing something that we're not supposed to be seeing. But unknowingly, he just destroyed it. You're claiming refraction. well, your Earth curve is supposed to be geometric. So welcome to
what
Friday.
Earth curve? We haven't got to any Earth curve. So far, all we've got is we can see Chicago. Okay, we can see Chicago. What's that? I need to explain it. Okay, I've got eyeballs. That's it.
No, he said it earlier. The reason why flat earthers think that we're seeing Chicago is because there's supposed to be Earth curves in between us and Chicago, and we're not seeing it. He already said that.
So correct me if I'm wrong then. What we're not seeing is Earth curve then?
Exactly.
Okay, but that means that he needs to tell me that I'm not really seeing Chicago.
No, he's in the middle of giving you mitigation as to why you're seeing what you're seeing, which looks like Chicago, but it's not really Chicago. You know what I mean?
I see. Shout out to Original D-Rose. He says, I did say he resembled Faulkner. Fraud intellect.
So he's claiming then that
Go ahead.
optical phenomena is occurring at an optical location.
I don't know why he's claiming.
This doesn't work. The light hits.
Sorry, in this guy's nutty mind, when a man wearing glasses comes up to you at the beachfront because you're looking at an island he says isn't really there, he's going to tell you that your air that goes in and out of your lungs is the same as the glass in his glasses. No, mate. No, let's just give you a base level education in states of matter. Your glasses are solid. Yeah, that means there are intermolecular bonds in the solid glass. Now, air is unbonded, mostly empty space with gas moving in between the gaps of the empty space. Now, do you see how those two things are completely different? Because you've just told this man, because you're a fraud and you're hijacking the terminologies of physics and science to bullshit people about not seeing things they do see, because air is the same as your solid glass spectacles. No. Just no. Somebody lock him in the nut house.
It's the eyeglasses, and because of the way that they're shaped, it.
Sorry, air has a shape, does it? So the anisotropic, inhomogeneous, unbonded gases are now taking a shape. No, sir. Air, that's a mixture of gases, has no inherent shape. Now, if you're going to infer any sort of shape for gases, then they take the shape of their containment. But you think they behave like spectacles, do you? When you're explaining why we don't see something we're seeing with our own bleeding eyes. These people are frauds. I hope the general public starts to wake up and realise what complete scumbaggery and shithousery they've got to actually perform in order to make you believe that there's an Earth curve that you're not seeing, but is really there because air behaves like glasses. Okay, we're just not seeing your Earth curve, mate. You don't need to explain to me why I see something I see with the lens of my eye that's giving me the ability to see it, or the lens of your glasses that's correcting the lens of your eye because of your insufficient eyesight. And then say that when I just see something, I can just see it. No, it's because we need to take into account how the air, which is definitely not glasses or lenses and eyeballs, behaves. What a fraud. What a complete fraud. Another shout out. Shout out to D-Rose. You thought I meant the Faulkner resemblance was based on his white beard and receding hairline. No, it's what he spews. I made absolutely no assumptions, and I can't even picture what Danny Faulkner looks like. So, no, not really. And don't knock people with a receding hairline. A couple more years, I'll be completely bald, mate, so don't knock it.
It bends in a specific way and changes what I'm seeing. Well, air is a lens also. Only.
Why? So, got some scientific evidence for it, perhaps, to back that garbage?
When there's a cold layer of air on the surface of the lake.
Right. Air is inhomogeneous and anisotropic. It's not forming layers. Are you an idiot? Do you think we got layers of gas? Well, here's the oxygen layer, and here's the nitrogen layer, and... Are you nuts? No, it's all mixed up. There are no layers. It's not forming sheets. Yeah, that's how bonded solids behave, like a layer of glass between you and what you're looking at. That's a layer. Yeah, a bonded solid can do that. An unbonded anisotropic inhomogeneous gas cannot. You stupid man. Why are you bullshitting this audience? It's despicable. Go ahead, whoever that was.
It's kind of like it's kind of like he foreshadowed this, right? Because wasn't he talking about earlier? He was saying something about a delusion caused by math. Well, what you're listening to is exactly that. Because of some math equation, this guy thinks the city that he can see is not actually there. And he's talking for I don't know how many minutes to tell you why what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. All because of math that he believes puts him on a spinning water ball. This is how you guys sound. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Please understand it in 2024.
Where has he got the idea that should be but isn't a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth blocking his view of something he can see? Well, it's the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. But this bearded guy, nutter, ranting about garbage and not seeing things when you can see them and why you shouldn't see them, but something that you can't see is blocking them, but you can really see them because air is a lens. This is bonkers. It's come from maths. The very thing he projected in terms of his conspiracy. Yeah? These people who claim they assess conspiracy have a complete inability to look inwards on the garbage that they spew. Well, these other people must be in a conspiracy. Where have you got this mathematical idea that there's a hill blocking your view of something you can see? Well, it's maths. It's Earth curve maths. The main point in this, right, this guy's religious belief in a hill that he can't see getting in the way of stuff you can, is based on R-value derivation measured on a flat Earth. So if you want to get into the mathematical delusion that your conspiracy by your standards is applied to you and your globe religion, then you'd look at the origins of the maths you're about to get into when you tell us about hills that we can't see getting in the way of stuff we definitely can and needs no explanation. And that would be the R value that's measured on a flat plane. That's the cornerstone of this mathematical assertion that a hill isn't even getting in the way but should be, and we'll explain why it isn't.
And the sun is shining and
Just
it's
quickly,
warmer
Nathan.
above.
Yes.
Just say that this is a channel that grandparents are more likely to visit. So if my grandparents are on YouTube looking for information, this is a channel they're more likely to get information from rather than someone like Johnny Harris or Simon Dan. Their instinct knows to avoid those types. So it's a shame that even if they came here, they'd still get the same misinformation.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't mind speaking to the older generation if they're tuning into this guy to get their information. Don't be deceived. Don't be fooled by a man claiming that anisotropic inhomogeneous gases form solid bonded lenses. They don't. For him to assert that there are layers of gas, oh why, but of course. We all see layers of... No, we don't, do we? He's just making this stuff up and calling it science to deceive you. That's what he's doing. So if you consider yourself of a reasonable intellect and not easily deceived, then hopefully you recognise where this deceitful bearded man is deceiving you with his claims of science, actually pseudoscience, his claims of physics, actually just looking at stuff.
The air becomes a lens and it literally, the light will bend and hug the earth and you can see things over the horizon.
Just pause a second.
Go ahead.
You almost, sorry, I tried to get you before you press play. You almost got it right earlier. They're telling you that the curve that you can't see, right, is there, and that the thing that you can see isn't there. It's the biggest gaslight in the history of humankind.
Absolutely, it's gaslighting. Why didn't I think of labelling it this? The lights aren't on. But they're burning. I turned them off when I left. They're not on. But they're on. They're on. You're not seeing the lights. Do I need to explain? Right. The air in the hallway is an anisotropic inhomogeneous mixture of gases. It forms lenses and refracts the light away from the position where there would be a burning lamp but there isn't. You're not really seeing the lamp on. It's not a burning gas lamp. Do you understand? But I'm looking at a lamp. Oh, you're just so stupid. Why is it that when I try and explain the refraction of light around the gas lamp, you keep telling me you're just seeing it? You're just stupid. Let me explain. Again, light refracting around the gas lamp. It's not really on. Do you understand? You're all being gaslit by guys like Beardy here. Yeah? Why is he doing it? Well, he doesn't even know. Stunning Kruger. He thinks he's doing a good job. He thinks he's being an intellectual. He thinks he's using science. Right? When he describes how the layers of gas bend the light around the globe Earth with his hand movements he just gestured with. No, you see, Brian here is our subject matter expert when it comes to the bending of the R-based sphere in your mathematics of terrestrial refraction at 7/6 of a radius value in standard form. Oh, there's that radius value you'll need a flat Earth to measure. There'll be a mathematical derivation of the R value you'll need to measure on a flat Earth called terrestrial refraction. And notice you just called it refraction. Yeah, no, that would be Snell's law, as I humiliated with you fraud. Meanwhile, what you're describing when you gesture light traversing layers of inhomogeneous gas around a bend, that would be terrestrial refraction. Are you writing this down, fraudster? Maybe you can better your fraud attempts by understanding how we unbend a radial value at 7/6 in standard form, and that is very specifically terrestrial refraction, as you just described. Now, all your garbage that you just lied about, you made up, because you won't be citing that. We'd have the best of the best, the people who actually put these calculations out, people who literally make the calculations, people like Mick West. And when we ask him, where does the terrestrial refraction reference? And he says, well, it's 7/6 of a radius. Click here. There's a hyperlink to all sorts of references to refraction that make no mention of a radial base 7/6R in standard form called terrestrial refraction, because they are utterly unconnected. You'd have to be a liar and a fraud like you and Mick West to make this garbage up when describing light bending around a sphere. In atmosphere, sphere-shaped air without containment. That's what frauds do, though, ladies and gentlemen. They'll make you think it's science while they're doing it. But don't be deceived. If you happen to be tuning in and you wouldn't normally be listening to us, well, know this. This man has absolutely no evidence for his layers of gas that form lenses, and he's hijacking a description of Snell's law that would require a boundary layer and two different mediums in order to make light change its straight path. Not bend, as this man lied when he gestured with his hand a moment ago. Just a liar, just a fraud. 7/6R isn't bending through anything. It's just 7/6R, and that is terrestrial refraction. We know where this man lies.
Horizon. It is a known physical phenomenon.
A horizon's a phenomena now, apparently. Horizons
your
are just
practical
horizons, my
driving
friend.
test.
They're not phenomena. But now we've got this guy hijacking the terminology of science yet again. Yeah? Notice he didn't mention phenomena until this moment, but I'd already caveated exactly what science would require in the form of an independent variable, otherwise known as naturally occurring phenomena. Now this man's horizon, that's Earth curve, that isn't in the way, isn't blocking Chicago, is a phenomena. We can't even see it in this example, but yet it's a phenomena. So the horizon, the hill that we don't see, is now the naturally occurring phenomena. We're not even seeing it.
30 feet up, doesn't see it, it's only a surface phenomenon.
He made that claim earlier. Show.
So for a lot of these conspiracy theories, there are...
Again, why are you wrapping this up in a conspiracy theory? You haven't described a conspiracy theory. You've described looking at Chicago. At what point did you describe more than one? That would be you. You're the only fraud here, because this is your claim. So there's one man's fraud about looking at Chicago. But now we're into classifying this as a conspiracy theory? I don't really understand. There is no conspiracy. Oh, maybe it's because you're telling this man. So you're conspiring to deceive the audience with this man. Is that what you mean? Because you've just brought in conspiracies after describing not seeing your Earth curve hill.
valid answers, clear answers, simple answers, and they're things
Nathan,
that
just a
anyone.
sec.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is a conspiracy. He's conspiring with the other people with him, which is massive consensus, that they are seeing an Earth curve edge that they're not seeing. And they're not seeing the thing that they are seeing. So that's a conspiracy, is it not?
Yeah. So you're saying the conspiracy is to convince people that you can't really see Chicago because there should be a hill blocking the way. We can't see the hill, but that must infer that Chicago's a mirage that we can't really see. Lights bending around the layers of gas they don't form because the unbonded gas forms lenses like spectacles. Therefore, the reason we're not seeing the hill not blocking Chicago is because it is there, but light bends around it, so we can't see it. Therefore, the thing we can't see that should be blocking our view is now the phenomena, because we're not seeing it when we would expect to, based on maths derived from flat Earth measurements. The maths says it will be in the way, and it isn't, therefore phenomena.
Yeah, the conspiracy is that it is there, but we can't see it. That's the conspiracy, isn't it?
One can see and anyone can know. So you can't just take one observation from one person at one time and make a broad scale application and conclude something like, oh, the Earth must be flat.
So if you were to take, say, a broad scale observation of the sky and categorize it as astronomy, and then tell people how their world is based on those mere observations, you'd say that they were completely bunked. Yeah, I'd agree with you. Observation alone does not make science. I mean, observation doesn't make science at all because you need to observe something actually occurring. It's for it to be classified as a phenomena. That's something occurring. Not seeing something that you believe will be there based on maths, that's not a phenomena.
It's not true.
So you're describing logic as used.
Sorry, how is it logic? If I see Chicago, it logically infers that I don't see Chicago because the maths of Earth curve says there should be a hill in the way, but there isn't a hill in the way. Therefore, logically, it must be that unbonded gas forms lenses and bends light around the Earth when I look at the maths equation of 7/6 of a radius value that has been measured on a flat plane. That's logic. No, what that actually is, gentlemen, is you being batshit insane. There is nothing logical or consistent about any of what I have just summarised. Yeah? It's insane. You're the nutters at the beach telling the people having a nice view that they're not really seeing their view. That's your version of logic. You're not really seeing the island, it's only logical.
Used for a scientific method approach to.
There it is again. Yeah? Fraud. Scientific method. Let's go through it. Just for my audience, not for the benefit of this fraud who's using this method to claim validity of an observation. Step 1. Observe natural phenomena. That is something occurring in nature not caused by man, not synthetic. And step 2. Suppose a cause for the natural phenomena you observed. That consists of your independent variable, supposition of causal influencer yet to be validated, and dependent variable, that's the observed phenomena in step 1. Step 3, actualize your scientific prediction, otherwise known as hypothesis. Your hypothesis, if causal influencer, independent variable, then naturally occurring phenomena, dependent variable. It is an if and then suppositional statement that you will vary the suppositional causal influencer and see if it causes the dependent variable you are trying to induce. That is called an experiment. The process also has a requirement for systematic experimentation. That is to say, you will repeat the variation of causal influencer to confirm in a systematic manner that it does cause the dependent variable that you are studying. That is a relatively concise summary of the method of science, otherwise known as the scientific method. At no stage, ladies and gentlemen, has this bearded fraud used that method. What he has done is gone and looked at a town or city in the distance. That's what he has actually done. He has then gone on to told you it is logically consistent to ignore that you see it and assume you can't, because something you can't see, that's a hill getting in the way, should be but is not in your way. Therefore, the should be but is not in the way based on Earth curve maths is his claimed now phenomena. To infer that his garbage and lies has somehow comported with this method he just named. Liar, fraud, pseudoscience peddling salesman.
The conspiracies. So would you say that conspiracy evidence is essentially pseudoscience?
No, because pseudoscience is a claim of science that has not been put through the scientific method as described by me 30 seconds ago. Pseudoscience just means you claim it's science like this guy did and then don't put it through the scientific method. Go ahead.
There is no such thing as conspiracy evidence. There's either evidence and proof or there isn't.
Evidence means proof.
Nonsense.
Evidence means proof. So conspiracy evidence, okay, that's fine. So evidence, that's proof that has come by way of people communicating with one another, conspiring to provide proof. Yeah, that would be conspiracy evidence. Perfectly positive, perfectly usable in the English diction.
Pseudoscience, yes. Pseudo-philosophy a lot of times also.
So are you now going to re-qualify what he asked you into pseudo-philosophy so you can talk about that? Because what you're doing is pseudoscience. You claimed it was physics. You even detailed the scientific method. Unlike me, you didn't go through that process in terms of what that would entail. What he did do is tell us that we're not really seeing Chicago. And apparently a non-hill that's not in the way is a phenomena. That's what you've told us. There wasn't a naturally occurring phenomena. There was no hypothesis construction. And there was no systematic hypothesis actualization. Because those three steps are the base of the scientific method. And if you haven't got them, like you haven't, then you are ipso facto peddling pseudoscience.
There is operational science. This is observable.
Right, no, there's only one science, right? Operational science is just some garbage you've made up. There's physics. That's the study of the physical and natural world, otherwise known as natural science. Natural science is the scientific method. That is the method of science. That is the essence of physics. That is science. Doing that method, and everything that doesn't do that method is pseudoscience. He's now going to go on about observable, testable, all the things that I describe without going into any detail or correlating those things with what he just described when you look at Chicago. He won't do that.
Observable, testable, repeatable experience we can do today. And this type of thinking goes all the way back. I mean, Sir Francis Bacon was a person who really codified this thinking. That's hundreds of years ago.
Why are you talking about it? Oh, I know. So you can steal valor from it. Imply that you have somehow comported with this methodology? No, Beardy, you definitely haven't. I'm exposing you as a fraud by telling the audience how that method would be performed. And you haven't got even the first step. You don't even have a naturally occurring phenomena. Seeing Chicago isn't something happening. It's just seeing Chicago.
But then in modern times, people have tried to split the difference between what you can know today and what you might want to guess about.
Have they now? Who cares? The method of science is empirical. It can only have proof as the outcome. It's built into the hypothesis. You can only have A cause B. That's an affirmation of your alternative hypothesis. Or A not cause B. That's an affirmation or confirmation of your null hypothesis, otherwise known as zero difference result. Only one outcome can be true upon formulating and exercising this method. At the end of the process, either you will cause the effect you are studying when you vary your independent variable, that's suppositional causal influencer, or you will not. So if you do not, A does not cause B. Tick, validated, zero difference result confirmed. It will never be the alternative hypothesis. If A does not cause B, you will never come back and find that it does. It would violate the law of non-contradiction to do so. Ergo, the method itself has empiricism built in. This guy is now going to use the la-la land deviation from the empiricism offered by physics and science because he's going to try and stereotype and categorize an observation as conspiracy.
Past. So operational science and historical science. Those two phrases
are just something you made up because we just have physics and the scientific method. And pseudoscience pretender clowns that say they have those things when they don't adhere to the method. That would be you, sir.
As far as I know, they trace back to Norman Geisler in the 1980s, but the thoughts can at least go back to the 1930s. So we're talking about.
So we're talking about where the idea of science comes from rather than where your Chicago observation that you claim is a conspiracy theory. Yeah, where that would fit into this method. Nobody asked you for a history of the scientific method, and you don't need one. As an audience member, do you feel that my dissemination of how you go through the method, observe natural phenomena, formulate a hypothesis, and then actualize it, did that need a history lesson? Did you need to know about bacon? No. Now, if I'm to asserting that I've got this credence and validity to my assertion that Earth is flat, then I will be called as being in a category area the same as this man. It's not a cause and effect relationship. But I understand the method that I'm not trying to steal the valor from. This man thinks you need a history lesson, but that's what charlatans do. Oh yeah, I've got an absolutely fantastic car on the forecourt. It's a Ford. Oh really? What's the interior like? Well, Fords started very long ago with the Model T. Let me tell you all about the history. Or could I just see the interior and check the engine? No, no, no! Let me tell you about that interior and how it came to pass through the history of production lines. And this seems dodgy. I'd rather just look at the interior. No, no, no. I'm going to lend the credence of having a car till I get a deposit out of you and take you on a merry dance of history of Ford cars. Hopefully you won't notice. Mate, you just need to tell us how you got this science in your observation that isn't science. But you won't notice if you're an audience member if you get a little history lesson about how Francis Bacon came up with the method he's not using. You won't notice he's not using it.
About nearly 100 years of people splitting the difference between operational and historical. I suspect that an enterprising historian could
probably bullshit about science and how it's deviated into something that I'm not using and will be hijacking and stealing all the valor and credence of when I haven't used it, making me demonstrable pseudoscience. If I was going to do that, I'd probably talk about the difference between operational and history-based science that simply don't exist. You know, we've got the actual scientific method, which I described earlier in a vague term that I didn't actually describe in any detail to give you an idea of how my non-claim of an observation that isn't a phenomenon would sit inside that method. But now let's waffle on about the differences between historical and operational sciences, something I've just made up. Maybe we can consider and ponder how they are different, because that's very pertinent and very relevant when I've just given you a description of something that has absolutely nothing to do with this.
probably trace that line of thought before that. So we're going back a long way of trying to tease this apart. In fact, even famous evolutionists like E.O. Wilson and Ernst Mayr, they made distinctions between what we can know, and in fact, they called evolution a historical science.
Oh, wow. So I called it perfectly then. Now, I'm not going to tolerate this crap anymore. I'm done with you. I can't stand frauds, sir. People who are alluding to the idea that they've got some scientific validity or justification to talk about the subject in a vague way or in a historical way, when it's merely a method of empirically validating cause and effect for natural phenomena. It is advanced humanity, sir. That's what science actually does. It benefits us. What are you doing with this method that could be benefiting humanity? Oh, you're just stealing credence and valor from it? What a disgrace. Please let Creation Ministries International know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment indicating that we have responded to the fraud this man had on his show as a guest. This pseudo-scientist pretender clown attempting to delude and deceive the older generations of our fantastic flat earth that we measure flat in order for him to lie about 7/6R being something to do with lensing in light and air when it's actually 7/6 of a radial value when defined as terrestrial refraction. Man's just a fraud. We're surrounded by frauds, and they project their fraud and how they perpetrate it onto the very people that they're defrauding. Outrageous. Please leave them a comment. There's a link to the videographer know. Let them know in the comments of their video at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. If For whatever reason, the videographer was inclined to get in touch or make a video response. We would hope that they would put a link to our video and say, oh no! Him detailing the history of science was basically him giving us the actual cause and effect reasoning and scientific methodology for an observation of Chicago. And maybe he will defend this fraud's position that he's had put to him. Because this guy, the host, you didn't recognise any of the fraud, sir. Yeah? That makes you a victim. A victim of this charlatan. You didn't spot it. You asked him about pseudoscience. But you didn't really understand the question you were asking, otherwise you'd have spotted it in what he was saying and pointed it out. Now, I can only make that assumption based on him being your guest after this limited coverage of the video. So maybe, I doubt it highly, you exposed this gentleman as a fraud that didn't adhere to the method he vaguely outlined to you, and exposed the pseudoscience within his claim of a non-hill that we can't see that means we're not really seeing Chicago when we look at it. Anyway, hopefully that's given enough people in my audience the time to go over. My viewing figures are going all over the place. 100, then 70, now 82. Man, viewing figures are weird. Anyway, please let him know. Hopefully there's a reasonable chunk, maybe 100 people in the live audience that can actually toddle along to this particular videographer and let him know that we covered their video. Any last comments before I take it off screen and move on in disgust?
I was just gonna say it would have been nice if maybe the host would have said something like, "Well, thank you for the nice history lesson in science. Going back to whether the Earth is a globe or a flat, that's not actually a scientific question. So can we go back to that?" But thanks for the science lesson, though.
Yeah, thank you for the science history. Aside from the category error in regards to this subject of an observation of Chicago, I mean, in other words, hand wave the complete nonsense, non sequitur and category error that is offered up. I doubt it, Chocolate.
He's wandering into QE's region now, so QE might feel inclined to pick up where you left off in the future.
Maybe. Any other comments?
Did he get a scientific topic confused with a geometrical?
I couldn't make a word of that out. One more time.
Video, he thought creation was a conspiracy.
Yeah, like going that route. With like the 4-lane, whatever, the boulevard on. He was going down.
Is just Bill hot micing, or is he trying to get a word in? Because I can't understand that. Your mic's a train wreck, just Bill. I can't understand what you're saying if you are trying to get a word in. Is he hot micing? If so, can someone mute him? If not, I can't. We'll have to figure out what's going on with your mic in the after show, just Bill, because I couldn't understand a word of that. Did anybody else understand what just Bill said and can translate through a better line?
He was talking to someone, by the sounds of things.
Oh, he was just hot micing. Okay, fair enough.
No.
Can anybody translate what he said if he was trying to say something? If not, I'm going to ask people to stay tuned for the after show.
He said, no.
Okay, cool. Right, with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to today's Discord and Jeepers panels. Massive thank you to you for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Hit me up on Ko-Fi and PayPal and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.